It's shows like this that make it really hard to be a reviewer at times because you may or may not get lost up in the hype. But as far as Seven Deadly Sins goes, I didn't get lost in the hype at all. I got lost to the in-depth writing of the characters. I got lost to the side stories that tied into the main plot line. Seven Deadly Sins is one of those shows that I like to call the real deal. But also, with that being said, I can't wait to start reviewing Season 2 weekly. So what exactly is Seven Deadly Sins? Seven Deadly Sins is a show that follows a girl named Elizabeth trying to find these seven deadly sins because the kingdom is actually getting overthrown. So who does she find whenever she goes off and sets off on this journey to begin with? She finds none other than the leader, Meliodas, a boy who looks about 15, 14, who's actually running a tavern. And the show goes on to present itself in a fashion to where it makes you say, whoa, this show could have some good action, and A1 Pictures did a damn good job for their action, and the writing just allowed this to happen. So I gotta give, credit to the author in and of, himself. He set the tone for the show. A1 Pictures handled it nicely, I thought, even though there are some things with the ending, and we'll kind of get into that since the ending wasn't totally anime original. We'll get to that in a second, though. Now, as for the art of the show is, a couple years old. I think it's three to four, somewhere right around there for, since the first season came out, maybe 2 years. 2 to 3 really is probably right, right around where it's at. And the art is fine. There's nothing wrong with the art. I actually enjoyed the art. It's not necessarily the best looking art you ever see, but it does fit its style, colors and all. And I can respect that for what they're trying to do there. It's kind of like a show like Hey 2, Jinsai no Grimgar. I think Seven Deadly Sins isn't trying to make it look like a work of art, but it's trying to represent itself with its art style, character designs, background designs. It's trying to represent something. It's trying to represent that the show is the Seven Deadly Sins, and its art will be so, and it's going to fit the manga. So as for the characters, which is really the just the thing that really sets the show apart from a lot of shows, is the in-depth characters and how in-depth they are, how far they'll go into their past, and how their past comes into play into the present, into the main storyline, is really interesting because the show goes in depth and really kind of exposes our characters, not necessarily one by one, but even together, such as Diane and King. Their relationship is really cool. We even get to see how, our leader Meliodas and Bond met, which is really, cool also, especially when they meet each other again after 10 years, as you'll see around episodes 6 or 5, which is absolutely hilarious. The show does a phenomenal job of, letting us see who they are through giving us context on this, on their situations, on their history, But at the same time, it lets us get, a great view of their characterization just through some of the stuff they do indirectly, how they, how their chemistry goes with one another, how they talk to one another, how they communicate. And that's something I can appreciate whenever they do it so subtly, whether they do it directly, saying, hey, we're going to shove this in your face, here's a flashback, or just saying, hey, let's just let you guys watch these two interact with one another. You're going to understand the relationship, and that's why you understand Meliodas and Bond's relationship. It's a physical one, it's a goofy one, it's an immature one, but at the same time, it's one that really runs deep, and they'd even give their lives for one another. They'd even understand how, why one is trying to kill the other, as we actually get to see in this show. They understand each other to a T because they've spent so much time together. But after the show, really presents itself and its characters, I think, after you meet King, Diane, Bond, Elizabeth, Meliodas, and we did not get to meet so much of, our sixth sin that we get introduced to, but we do get to see our seventh sin in the next season, from what I'm being told. I don't really know. I'm just hearing that from the manga people saying, hey, Pride's coming, since he is actually the only one we haven't gotten to see. That's something that I'm really excited to see. But the show, lingers these questions that they make us ask in the beginning. So that's the part, we're on now after it presents itself, and that's good. That's what a show should do, no matter what, whether it's writing an essay for a school paper, a persuasive paper, whatever, you may be writing that's supposed to grab the attention of the audience. You need to start the question. And what Seven Deadly Sins is, not only starts with a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them, it slowly fits in about 2 to 3 more that really carries itself through the, the whole narrative of the show. And that's what it needs to do every time. And quite frankly, that's why I really applaud Seven Deadly Sins, because it made me always engaged with the show, always engaged with the questions, always engaged with the narrative, and especially the characters. That's where the money's at. That's where the gold's at. And that's scary because everything else in the show is so damn good. Narrative, the antagonist, the questions. And if you have a good cast, like I always say, you're always going to have a great show. And that's that. That's that. Your plot can be crap, but people will watch simply because of the characters. It's not going to be the best thing ever. It may not sell crazy worldwide, but you're going to have an audience. You're going to have a viewership. And if you make them a little bit more in depth, it's going to make sense. They're not one-dimensional characters. There's a little bit more oomph to them. I would say really essentially they're all two-dimensional characters outside of, I guess, really Diane. You know, Bond's an interesting character. King, he's a very understandable character. You know, Meliodas, he is a mystery a little bit, but we know there's more there. We know he's not a one-dimensional character. We know he's not single-dimensional, and that's something I can get excited about, but also behind. So with that being said, Seven Deadly Sins. After season 1, I'm not a manga reader, so obviously there's some things manga readers have a problem with this series with, in the first season, but I'm just anime only. So I'm giving Seven Deadly Sins an A, not a plus. Only very little shows get an A+, but I'm giving the show an A, a solid A. I loved every second of it. I love the music. I love the animation. That's what the show does great at also, is its action. The variety of attacks, the music that goes into the fight. It was just made up so well. I can't help but give it an A+ in all, or not an A+, excuse me, but an A in all categories, and an A+ in some. So go watch it. This is gonna be a show I'm gonna be recommending for a while. But hey, if you haven't seen the show, go watch it. You'll like it. I promise.